Hello, my name is Rachel West. I apologize for recording in my bedroom, but I thought this would be the best place since my office is closed today. So I want to take you through my project proposal. I will just hold the camera up to my computer screen so you can go through the PowerPoint presentation with me as I walk you through it. Thank you. Okay, so my project proposal, I've titled it How We Teach, Who We Teach. And I basically title it that because I really want to focus on how we teach culturally responsive teaching, but I'll get into that later. But I think this best summed up what I wanted to talk about. Okay, so why we teach, who we teach, why should this be studied? First, I want to talk about classrooms are getting more diverse as the percentage of minority students are increasing. And that was said by Jacqueline Kelly McHale from NAFME. And the Pew Research projected that by 2022, 45.3% of students will be white and 54.7% of students will be a minority. This is really important because as we go into our music education careers, we find that our classrooms are not made up how they were made up 10 years ago or how they are 20 years ago. And when we get to the future, they won't be made up the same way 10 years from that point. So our classrooms are ever evolving and our teaching has to adapt to our evolving classrooms. But most importantly, we have to be responsive to that evolution. We can recognize that it is evolving, but if our teaching does not match that and it is not responsive to it, all of our hard work would be in vain. But it's not just the students who are also changing. This question needs to be asked because our teachers are not changing and our programs are not changing. Even as we approach 2022, our programs and the diversity makeup of our teachers still looks the same as it has been for some decades now. But I want to turn your attention to a study that I found that stated both music programs and music educators lack diversity. In 2011, music education researchers Carlos Abril and Kenneth Elpis found that 65.7% of music ensemble students were white and middle class. Only 15.2% were black, and 10.2% were Hispanic. Additionally, Elpis found that 86% of music teachers entering the field were white and middle class. From personal experience, I can attest to these statistics, being one of very few minority students in my music programs, and as I entered my college sphere, I was one of 3 minority students in my music education program. So I can attest to the lack of diversity that is at the higher level and at the lower levels of music education. So these idea formed my research questions. So coupled with my personal experience and what I have studied for the past few weeks, I want to ask the question, is culturally responsiveness taught in music ed programs? Are teacher candidates prepared to be culturally responsive in their future classrooms? Is there a disconnect between music ed programs on culturally responsive teaching? Can teacher candidates recognize culturally responsive teaching? And is culturally responsive teaching an integral part of teacher candidate programs? So my research questions are really focusing around the teacher candidate and the music education programs themselves. I really think that is the route to how we can move forward in our culturally responsive teaching. It is very difficult as a veteran teacher to be thrown something and not really know how to navigate it. And our veteran teachers are getting the training that they need with constant meetings and constant furthering of education with NAFME, but our pre-service teachers may not be getting that constant awareness, especially without having their own classroom. So my research questions were targeted mostly towards pre-service teacher candidates who are really in the beginning of their careers and need this foundation before they enter the classroom. And I was wondering if that is even there. So the related literature to this, I had this idea in mind. I wanted to do something with multicultural education, or just multicultural music in general since the semester started, but I really dug into and finalized what I wanted to do by my third critique. And my third critique focused on a study by Carlos Abril, learning outcomes of two approaches to multicultural music education. And what he talked about, basically, the two approaches were music concept versus sociocultural context. So what that means, as a refresher, is that if you teach the music concept, let's say rhythm, and you teach the rhythm as you would usually teach it in your classroom, and then through that you would offer in musical, multicultural examples of these different types of rhythms. So you would add in African music or Aborigine music or East Indian music to have these examples of complex rhythms. The other technique is the sociocultural context, where if you were to introduce a song, you would introduce that entire culture, have a conversation about tolerance, and it would really become more a discussion in the classroom versus an example. And what the outcome of this study was that these two approaches work very well separately, but in the music concept, the students walked out learning their skills stronger. And in the sociocultural context, they walked out having a more richer discussion about racial tolerance. Obviously, those two need to be placed together, and one is not favored over the other because skills are important. So at the end of the study, Carlos Abril really found out towards the end is that these techniques in an ideal setting need to be placed together. The second study that really helped me was this Netsingi, I hope I said his name right, was Finding Balance in a Mix of Culture, Appreciation of Diversity Through Multicultural Music. And what was interesting was this one is that it was based in Australia. Australia has a very diverse population, and especially in their student population. And this researcher wanted to go out and find that if their music programs matched the amount of diversity that their students witnessed every single day. And interestingly enough, Nsingi found that it did not. And the music programs inside of the school were very much structured towards a very European westernized context, and only until the children sought extracurricular activities did they find the diverse music that fit their population. And I thought that was really interesting and unfortunate, but it spoke to a lot of my experiences that I had personally growing up in music programs where extracurricular activities were then sought out to be the ones that were more multicultural friendly and more culturally responsive. My final critique really balanced it out because Shaw came up with this idea of culturally responsive teaching and really established it in her research. Her study was called The Music I Was Meant to Sing, and it was in the Journal of Research in Music Education. And what was really interesting about this one is that she did a case study, and she focused on one particular part of her case study where she had a children's choir. She observed a children's choir that was majority minority students, and the teacher was practicing culturally responsive teaching, and she asked the opinion of the minority students in that class of what they thought about culturally responsive teaching. It was extremely overwhelming positivity from the students about how important it is to be culturally responsive and to hear music that matches their identity. And the detail from the interviews of the children was really eye-opening and inspiring to read how much they appreciated culturally responsive teaching and having a teacher that focused on who they were as people and not just students. However, I thought it was also really refreshing to hear that from the students they recognize the increasing difficulty it is to be culturally responsive in such a diverse classroom? If you have children from every step of the globe, how do you as a teacher navigate through being culturally responsive to each and every student? So because they recognize that, I think it's important that we know as teachers that our students understand how difficult this whole concept is. So for my methods, I really wanted to go towards the teaching candidate since that is what I was focusing on. I will be utilizing about 60 participants, 45 teacher candidates from a music program, and 15 that are non-music teachers. I wanted to include non-music teachers so that it does not become a critique of just music education programs. I wanted to use those 15 as sort of an independent variable, if you will, where they may be the non-changing, the constant, that maybe it's just these programs in general, or is it something specific about the music programs that are not talking about culturally responsive teaching. I think that comparison will be quite interesting in how I create my instruments for my methods as well. The candidates will come from several Midwestern universities and Western Kentucky University specifically as well. The procedure that I used is mixed methods. I think this is the best procedure and the best approach to answer my specific research questions because in mixture of all my research questions together, I'm basically asking to what extent is this culturally responsive concept happening? And with that kind of question, I need a well-rounded set of data that will give me both quantitative and qualitative views so that I can make a really detailed survey about the programs, about the concerns of the teacher candidates, about their feelings, and about their aspirations towards culturally responsive teaching. I feel like just having a quantitative survey or just an interview won't give me the insight and the scope that I need for my research questions. Instruments-wise, I will have a qualitative measure of journaling and 2 brief interviews. Just to go over that, I will give them, each of my candidates, a packet of a week's worth of basically a week's worth of what it looks like to have a culturally responsive lesson. It spans a week and it's in a music classroom. For my non-music candidates, I will give them a culturally responsive lesson of their of their field. Sorry. This can all be found on the NAFME website. I will just be printing those practice lesson plans directly from that and giving that to them as an example. I will have them write a little notes, jot some thoughts down, and I will be giving each a brief phone or email interview, whichever is more appropriate for them, preferably phone interview on how they felt about those lesson plans, what were their immediate reactions, how difficult or how easy they can see themselves completing a lesson like this. And then I will develop a pilot survey based off of those responses to the lesson plans. And then on that pilot survey, I will go back to the candidates and interview them about what can be changed about the survey, what can be altered, and then I will create a final survey that I will be giving to all of the participants. This mixed methods research was really inspired by a video that we saw a couple weeks ago about the coin game. I thought the way that mixed methods research was conducted was really interesting, and I thought it really fit with how I'm asking my research questions as well. And that is all. I want to thank you so much. In general, I think that it's really important that I discuss how to be culturally responsive in the music education classroom. I look forward to your feedback, especially towards the mixed methods portion of my research. Do you think that the utilizing of the lesson plans as a guide to see how they felt about the about the cultural responsive technique is moving away from my research question, or do you think it enhances it? The surveys will obviously be about the programs as well, but I wanted to see how the teacher candidates react to what culturally responsive teaching actually looks like. Because one of my research questions was, can teacher candidates recognize culturally responsive teaching? So by answering that, I think utilizing that technique of showing them lesson plans was my approach, but I would love to hear your feedback and what you think about that. And I look forward to reading your research as well. Thank you.